Hello, everybody, and happy Friday for Memorial Day weekend Friday. Um, all right, what am I doing? All right, so, anyways, had quite a few really good ideas flying around. Let's see. So, I mean, it's kind of hard because like I don't write them down, and then I'll be like doing stuff, and I think that's why. Let's start off with that. Why I really enjoy doing these musings. In fact, we'll go mine some stuff and like just kind of just do something random. So, anyways, first off, it's like being in the shower. You know, you're thinking about other things, and then your mind kind of wanders, and then next thing you know, you find the problem or the solution to a problem you're having. That's a big computer science thing. So, for those of you who are watching these things to actually try to get a career in tech or learn how to be better with IT, like that is a very important thing, and I like to call it um, like oscillating my thoughts or like thought oscillation or just something like that, just to kind of like suggest that you're taking your normal pathway of thinking, right? And then you're changing it. You're changing your perspective. You're looking at a different angle, a different lens, something that would possibly yield different results. And that is really important if you're going to study computer science. You will drive yourself absolutely, you'll be very hard on yourself. Let's just put it that way. I almost want to say crazy, but I'm really trying not to say stuff like that. Like trying to just be a little more thoughtful about how I describe things. But anyways, because vernacular is important, and that is the downside to communication is there's so many different versatile ways to it that you have to like think about other problems that are introduced by using a more versatile way of communicating. So, anyways, in a nutshell, that's about what it is. Oh, look, diamonds right away. That's nice. So, even though I got a couple stacks now, so it's not like I'm hurting, but you can never have too many of anything in here. It's just nice. So, anyways, well, especially if you're like me and you just run around and fall in lava every now and then. I was griping about that last time, and seriously, that is a traumatic experience on the Minecrafts. Like, you work so hard to. Oh, and also I need to keep for when I if and when I do turn it off of peaceful, that keeps mobs from spawning. For those that are unaware of Minecraft mechanics, but anyways. And then losing tools and stuff. It's even worse because then you have to do the enchantments, you got to spend levels, and any of that. But I digress. Back to shower thoughts. Musings are just awesome because you get to kind of like think through things, figure it out. And I'm actually, oh yeah, that was one of the things that I wanted to talk about was I think I'm going to start doing like some streaming where like I open it up and get some comments going maybe because I did have some fun when I was doing like the coding streams. Like, don't get me wrong. And if any of you are still watching these things that were from my Twitch days, like I do apologize. That was a lot of fun for me. It was also mainly when I was looking for a job. I was trying to like put up, these videos to prove that I kind of knew what I was doing, at least to get into entry level. Because I try not to boast anything that I'm not too, and that isn't, that is some more advice, and that's another reason I want to do these things is because everything that I found helpful in my career journey is what I'm trying to translate over, and for free, of course. Like that's something I also stressed in my earlier videos. I was watching a couple of really old ones, and like, this isn't for fame. Like that's actually part of the reason why I stopped streaming with my face on the TV because it's like or on the screen. Sorry, I'm dating myself there, but was because like some people do it. They want to be famous. They want to get their face out there. I do it because I find that there are people that learn in different ways, and I've heard it explained in like three main camps or three main types of learning. Like one's visual, one's like I want to say like hands-on, and the other one's like reading or instructional. Yeah, I think that is actually like the three. But anyways, it doesn't matter. That's all like a theory too. Like I really, how do I say this? It's not as provable as gravity. Like it's not as easily proven as gravity. So I can say with more authority that, something like gravity I can believe more than even the idea that we learn in three distinct ways. Because there could be a fourth, there could be 20, or there could only really be two, and it's just how we classify them. So I just wanted to make that distinction because another part of trying to speak carefully and also I kind of take a while to respond a lot of times, like when I'm actually talking, and I sometimes get derailed is because I'm thinking about all these things. Like, is that really accurate? Like, would I feel comfortable saying that? Because it avoids a lot of problems down the line of people being like, but wait, no, you said this and this is totally wrong. And it's like, well, okay, and like, and especially when it's things, and this is why it's so important to be patient with people that struggle with any kind of tech, because that is myself included. It's anyone, and I do tech for a living, but like, and I was explaining this to someone the other day who they were getting frustrated. Tech wasn't their thing, and they were, of an older generation, and that's understandable because the older generations haven't had nearly as much experience as we have. And I've definitely ranted about that before on these musings, but like it is important to understand. I mean, even in my lifetime, we went from having maybe one computer in your house to, like 20 computers in your house and not even batting an eye. So it's important to remember that and really remember that when you're problem solving with anything. And I know it's a stretch. Stay with me here. When you're problem solving with tech and then you start problem solving the same way with people and situations, you one find it a lot less stressful for yourself because you're leaving it open-ended both on the coming and going, the input and output. Like the what you say and what you put out there is a lot less. Whoops, I missed some diamonds. Is a lot less not judgmental, but it's not as easy of a target to be judged. There you go. So it's not a low-hanging fruit for someone to correct you and be like, actually, you're completely wrong here, or, how could you even say that? This is what, there is so much of that. I mean, luckily things are getting better. People are becoming more polite because the better communication technology and social media gets. And I'm specifically talking about Twitter. Now, whatever you feel about it, I have noticed in my personal experience that people are talking nicer to each other. And especially when you notice, like, I don't know, if you look through, you can look through all of their tweets and their old stuff and everything, and everything they've liked even, you know, it's pretty public. And so I try to keep that in mind whenever I'm doing that stuff. Uh, But as I say that, there's a disclaimer. My Twitter is very political at times. I try not to. It's even in the name. I'm trying to teach STEM through it. But unfortunately, until we solve that problem of the divisive politics that we suffer from here in America, it's going to be a problem. So, anyways, enough of that. I'm just saying, also pointing out that open source intelligence, publicly available information. I realize that all of this stuff is visible, and I'm not uncomfortable with some of it, but at the same time, I'm also pretty confident in, well, security and stuff, but at the same time, not likely being a target. I mean, I try not to offend people. And with these talks about religion, I can see some of that, causing offense. And that's definitely not my intention. So to any out there, I noticed a couple people were quick to dislike the short that I made. And I was talking about slavery. And oh, okay, actually, yeah, let's address that elephant in the room too right away, because there have been times, and I noticed on one of my musings that I talked about something that Hitler did and the Holocaust and all that. And my official stance is that is horrible and it should never have happened in the first place, and I hope that it never happens again or anything even close to that scale. So let's just put that to bed, including slavery and including native genocide. Like these are things that like I was horrified in school learning about these things. I was like, wait, what? And a lot of people like might not have been paying attention or like, thinking about when they were going to get out of school, but I hung on to every word and I was like, wait, because I just got done learning about how awesome we were as a country and how great like our war was and like how brave we were and how patriotic. And even that, if you look a little closer, with like, okay, so the knowledge that we have from current military conflicts and the way that these ideas are communicated and the horror and the sheer like well, yeah, it's the horror. It's a acting as more of a deterrent, I would say. I mean, it's not perfect. Like we still have the Ukraine Russia thing going on, and that's I don't even know. I was looking into the actual cyber attacks that were involved in the war so far. It basically is a war. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's not a world war, like, or whatever title you want to call it, but people are dying, and it is something that it's like, yeah. And I'm conflicted, and that's part of that birth lottery. Wait. Let me back up a little bit. So, just want to make sure. So we clarified that. Yeah, I say some pretty random things that might sound a little bad, well, really bad. Like that's short. I mean, I didn't. It's hard to fit that much context into 1 minute, and I even do 1 minute ones, and that's rude in the shorts community. Like 15 seconds get way better views, and I've been, everybody is anybody doing a YouTube channel. That's what they're doing. They're keeping track of the analytics and like, oh, well, if I do this, then more people seem to like this. And trust me, I know the cute video with the axolotl family. That was probably my favorite video of mine too, because it was carefree. It was fun and it was very random, but it happened when I was randomly playing Minecraft and, you know, I don't know. And these are actually what I'm thinking to myself as I'm doing this stuff. Like I'll be building something or mining or, I'll be like, oh, well, processing things that happened in the day, processing how I can do things better the next time, continuous improvement of myself and others. And I say others not in a forceful dictator way, but I've always tried to encourage better behavior of those around me in subtle ways. And I think we all do it to a point. Like if you're comfortable in a certain situation or a certain set of, actions or behaviors, then you tend to kind of try to steer other people towards that. Sometimes you're more forceful, other times, and then sometimes you might just upright and snap. Other times, and that's whole leadership versus being a boss, being a leader versus a boss, and that is, some of my management training background because I have a minor in business administration. I took one class in management, a bunch of like business, finance, accounting type classes. But anyways, leadership and how to properly lead a team, how to properly manage, and get a project done. Because it's common knowledge now that nobody wants to be a boss and like ordering people around. Like nobody's gonna be cracking the whip, building the pyramids. Like, oh, and see, you can't even say stuff like that because given that I was just talking about slavery last one, and anyways, it's good to just clarify these things. So, but well, and even that, let's talk about that. Work practices of early America, horrible. And they still didn't get any better. We had kids working in, factories, dangerous situations. We're still talking about kids working in bars and stuff I heard about in one of the states or in this country. And that's, I'll check my watch today, or I'll bet you I can Google it and I'll see that there's somewhere they're trying to push that law through that. And to a point, I get it. Like, kids should be able to work in certain settings. Like, I know I did some under the table work. I mowed some lawns. I shoveled some sidewalks. I, I didn't sell lemonade, but I did try to make seashell necklaces out of snail shells out of a pond. Yeah, really ghetto, even as I say that. But my dad bought some. So, and that's important too. And that's why I also want to like try to do, and again, I'm no expert. In fact, I'm probably not even one of the best people to take parental advice from. I kid. I mean, I did at least get official training to do part of this charity thing because, I mean, I was poor and we weren't, well, okay, it's, sorry, I gotta also take a part there. Try to say everything and do everything as if anybody can be watching, like little ears and little eyes. And even though I set this as not made for kids, there is a chance that kids could watch it. There's a chance that my kids could watch it. And I've been realizing this, and already I felt like I kept a pretty good handle on what I said because it's going to be made public. And basically, I try to do all of this as if like, what if my mom found this? What if my grandma found this? What if, like, I mean, I don't do church anymore, but what if my pastor found out about this, like back when I did, or oh, and that's another thing. Sorry, let's talk about that real quick. So. Well, okay, let's finish this thought. Little ears, little eyes is what people used to say is like kids might be watching, kids might be listening, so be on your best behavior. And at the same time, I get frustrated with that because it's like I would rather live comfortably in a way that if a kid hears me, I don't care. I mean, it could cause some awkwardness, but overall and at the end, it'll be worth it to just kind of, get that out of the way. Not with everything. Like, I mean, let's be honest. There's some things that but if a kid gets a hold of YouTube and just kind of watches away, then, everything's fair game. So anyways, and that's why YouTube enforces community guidelines to begin with. Like, you're not allowed to put all out just like adult content on here. I mean, you can, like, to a point. You can push the line, but once you get famous and once people start noticing your videos, then they start getting complaints, they start getting flagged. And and then some of mine could very well too. And that's going to be a sad day if I start seeing that. Like, if I start getting bit. I hold no delusions of grandeur, is a way that I've heard it put before. But like with just other people, I know that there's a good chance I'm not going to get famous. That's how I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I learned how to do some stuff. I was professionally trained on how to teach doing stuff. TWI, job instructor trained. I've taken several classes. I've got a degree. I've got a minor. All these things. I've lived life. And even besides that, you don't have to have these things to be able to give advice. That's the other thing too, is I've been told on several occasions, it's like, you give good advice, or, oh, you explain that really well. You should really do that more. Or you should do that for a living. Well, I kind of do. I work in IT, so I can fix a problem, 10, 20, 30 times, or I can help people learn how to, fix it themselves. And sorry, go back down to that religious thing. If you give a person, not just a man, if you give a person a fish, they'll eat for a day. If you teach a person to fish, they'll eat for life. You know, it's that kind of scalable thinking that I do appreciate certain stories of the Bible. And let's talk about birth lottery real quick, because that is an important thing. Let's see. I'm about to run out of torches, and it's usually a good indicator when I'm about to fill up with like my inventory space. So then I got to go up anyway. I could toss some of this, but I don't know. Anyways, back to the birth lottery. I didn't choose where I was born, and I've heard that quite a few times. And it's like, and it's true. Like your parents did, and in a way, they didn't really either. But I don't know. It's hard to explain, but the basic idea is like, say what country you were born in. You don't really have a choice. Your parents kind of did, but maybe not, depending on like what their situation was. And so it's really almost nobody's fault. And we're just trying to do the best we can to make it to where anybody can live comfortably. Although we like to think we do, but that's why it gets so ridiculous when certain people aren't. And you know, philanthropy should just come second nature. And that's why I'm a big believer of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where you get your needs met and then you start thinking about others. It's the oxygen mask in a nutshell. Like on an airplane, you put on your mask before assisting your child, because if you pass out from lack of oxygen, you can't help your kid. And that's a good way to think about everything. Like if you fail or if you falter, then you can't really help anyone else. I mean, you got to be able to help yourself first. But that's in my opinion one of the biggest causes of social problems in America, at least, and if not, probably the whole world. I feel like this one's pretty common. Is we don't understand that, and we don't feel like our needs are getting met. It's especially so in America, I say, because of capitalism. And you know, it is a great system. We've gotten a lot of really nice things out of the deal. Like we've made a lot of advances. But I know, and I always like to think back to that statue on campus at CSU, Colorado State University. You know, go Rams. But anyways, really not important. I should say about like fandom. But anyways, just thought that'd be funny. No, it's a statue that says, "I only saw as far as I did because I stood on the shoulders of giants." And I forget who it was. I just quoted it on one of my streams or one of my videos. Like, well, okay, looking back at streams. So it's been over a year since I've streamed, like on Twitch, I want to say. I did once and it was muted. And so that was fun. I played Borderlands, the pre-sequel, for half an hour on mute. Anyways, I'm no pro, and so I don't got to worry about this getting too big. But anyways, it is good to just assume that everybody's going to see. And that's kind of the underlying thing about religion too, at least Christianity. And I feel like it is for Islam as well, because like God like sees all, is all knowing. So that is kind of true. Like it's an underlying concept of organized religion, structured religion, to where, and really it's kind of the fear that the government would kind of get to that level where they'd see all and hear all and know all. And they are to this point. I mean, now with technology and even without backdoors, there's ways to connect the dots in between behaviors. And that's why, you know, I tell everybody, well, how do I put this? I like to tell people that in hopes that they'll connect their own dots, saying like, if you're breaking the law and using a computer to do so, stop. Well, if you're breaking a law in general, you just need to stop. And that's the thing, is like the underlying purpose of a lot of this is preventative blue team cybersecurity. You know, I signed an oath, a white hat manifesto, actually, swearing that I would only use my powers for good. I would be a Jedi. You know, not in those terms. That's just how I kind of say it, because it's true. Like that is the age old story of like Jedis versus the Empire. You know, and in anything evil, corruption, or you know, and you got to be careful with that, because it actually has to be like straight up evil like that too. I mean, let's get that clear right away. Like current world governments, well, first off, they're not nearly as bad as they were like 100 years ago, 200, 300. Like we are progressively getting better as a whole. I honestly believe that humanity is getting better. We're improving. Now, granted, it's not as fast as it should be, of course. But at the same time, we got to manage our expectations too. And that's why I constantly bring up slavery and native genocide and stuff, is because, yes, those are two very apparent evils that our own country did. That my country, see, again, like mine, I only was born here. I could have been born anywhere else in the world, and then I'd be singing a different tune, you know? And so that's what people don't really realize a lot of times. Or they might think they realize it, but then they just kind of glaze over it. But the fact of the matter is we could have been born anywhere. And so the logical thing to do, once you realize that, is to make everywhere good. not just okay, you want everywhere to be great, as awesome as you can make it. And I think that's why it hasn't happened this or so far. Oh, whoops, I completely forgot we were full, and then, yeah, we don't need tough. And especially since there was two. Okay, yeah. Now this deep rock, what is it called? Yeah, or cobbled deep slate is very versatile. You can make so many different types of blocks out of it. And see, there, I even filled up. Let's do that. So I'd much rather have more of that, so especially when building. I usually use these and then diorite. And that's a fun story too. I got the highest grade in a community college geology class, and I still have to double check like what diorite even looks like talking about it. I mean, because there were a lot of rocks and minerals to identify, and I really wish but I only took one class. It wasn't my major for an undergraduate degree. It wasn't my focus or area of focus. Quite the opposite. I had a shotgun area of focus. I did anthropology, psychology, sociology, geology. I mean, I wanted to do oceanography and astronomy. Yeah, astronomy. And then see, I even mixed that up, like astrology, the more like the Saturn star signs and I don't even know. In a roundabout way, science even proves that something like that could be valid. If you think about it, the actual effects of gravitational pull from large masses in space could have an adverse effect on us. I mean, it raises and lowers the tides. It for sure could be raising and lowering the blood in our systems, the water in our bodies. Like it could be affecting something like more pressure, less pressure. All of these things. Granted, there's a lot more likeliness of more immediate changes in pressure and temperatures and environment having more of an effect on you, but you can't leave out like there's still a chance that somehow Mars being closer to us when you're born gave precisely enough pressure in the right way or wrong way or whatever to affect. And see, I don't even know. Even as I'm saying that, the likelihood or the chances of that being true are even that much more less likely. And that's a better way to think of things. Like, don't think of them in black and white or that binary bias. Like, is it more or less likely? Oh yeah, I can't even get copper. That's right. So, that was pointless. Anyways, so the likeliness of I don't even remember what we were talking about. Oh, right. Astrology. There you go. Yeah, astronomy versus astrology. Astronomy, my dad loved it. He had star charts like the old school way. He would lay them out and he would like go out in the sky and just like look. And we lived up in a small mountain town, so you could easily see the stars at night. It was awesome. And again, the birth lottery. I was born in an awesome place. It really sucked for high school. I will say that. I mean, it kind of got us getting into a little more trouble than your average person, I would say, in the city. Because in the city, you don't have an excuse. Like you have shopping malls, you have this. I mean, I could see the excuse that you don't have money, and that is a problem. Like that whole getting your needs met and thinking that they're not met, and that leading to bigger problems down the road. So I definitely sympathize with that whole mindset. Not saying like go out and steal stuff, but I understand why it happens or why more crime like that happens. And it's because it's that unrealistic image of what's successful. Oh wait, I got a lot of stuff to drop off from there. So let's see. Easiest is to go put the lapis lazuli. Actually, so I keep this down here. So then I can just make them into blocks, and I got a pyramid going, or I have a small pyramid out there made of lapis, but I do want to make sure. Okay, yeah. So, actually, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. That's the other thing too. I was thinking of as I was actually washed this controller or wiped it off, because I mean, not that it was super dirty. Like we all take pretty good care of our tech here. This is a tech household, but things happen. Kiddos might be eating with the controller, and that's fine. Dad might be eating and then using the controller. So it doesn't matter who it was. I don't care. The scalable way of doing this and problem solving for this is if you have a couple seconds, just clean the controller. I mean, do it now so you don't have to worry about it later. Solve the problem in a preventative way. There you go. So you don't have to deal with it down the road. Like, I don't know. But you also got to be careful with that because even as I say that, you could become obsessive about it. And not to make light of anyone with the actual obsessive compulsive disorder. I've made that mistake of like, just trying to generalize because people take that seriously. And I'm not trying to say that's like even something to laugh about. It's like, you got to understand that that's sensitive to certain people that might be affecting. Sorry, just kind of explaining that why I tiptoe around that a little bit because it is important, and unless someone knows you and knows how you kind of usually are, it could upset them and understandably so. But anyways, obsessive compulsive disorder, well, that's different from just like, oh, I like to have things neat and tidy. And then honestly, who decides at what point it is officially, I don't know. Actually, to be honest, mental health is one of those things that the area of study that I believe is very underdeveloped. I will say that. And and that's having studied, taking a class in anthropology, sociology, psychology. I took psychology 4 times because I was horrible at showing up to test day. Let's just say that. But I did take the class 4 times, and I sat through the classes 4 times. Like, I mean, because I did show up for a lot of the classes, but I would just start getting into this funk where I'd just be like, oh, I'll sleep in, hungover, whatever. Yeah, being in college, it's a real and present danger to drink too much alcohol, and so that's why something you got to be careful of, and especially date rape stuff. Like, I honestly didn't even think date rape drugs were real until I came to the city, and like you find out they are. It's horrible. Like that was not a problem up in the mountains. Like we would joke about it, but when I say joke about it, like talk about it, even joke, like, but we always considered that it was fake. Like we just like that, or even if it was real, you had to like really know somebody. I don't even know. Like we just couldn't wrap our minds around it. And so that's another throwback to situations and perspectives. Because if you don't have the proper perspective, anything could seem real or fake. Like when you get right down to it. Same thing in the other way. Like back when communication was all bad, somebody could cross the desert and tell you things are one way, and then you find out later, oh wait, maybe they were more this way, or maybe they weren't even that way at all. And I'm being general with that is because like that's organized religion in a nutshell. I mean, even if, and let's say, because I'm not saying it's untrue, but let's say any of them are absolutely correct and like God existed, did all these things, Allah existed, did all these things. I mean, and the Judean God is the same God too. I feel like they're all the same God, honestly. Any monotheistic religion you could kind of say is like, oh, they subscribe to that. There's one God. The only thing that differs is how they interpret what that God said or did, or what the people closest to that God. See, that's why I was always skeptical about Christianity was because there was a story passed down like over time. There was so many like pieces along the way where it's like that game Telephone, and you teach kids that, which is kind of funny. Like you're playing the game Telephone, and then you go to church and Sunday school, and I did the whole 9 yards too. I did all of that, and it was like, okay, so make this make sense. And honestly, a lot of the times the Sunday school ladies they didn't have a good answer. They were just like, well, God works in mysterious ways, and it's like, what? No, don't give me that. Like, oh yeah, I mean it only happens sometimes. I guess you just missed it. Like, that kind of thing. It's like how you can easily scam somebody and I'm not saying like religion is a scam just based on that. It's just if you start to see a lot of these things line up, then it's time to be like, okay, wait, let me step back a little bit, choose how much I want to invest in this, whether it be like your time, your effort, your belief, your safety. Like, if you put all the eggs in one basket and it turns out to be wrong, like I'm specifically thinking about 72 virgins that die in jihad and then heaven and hell. Like if you're right, okay, cool. Like that's okay that you lived in such a way. And I mean, oh, and that is horrible to say. Like, cause no, I'm in the belief that it is never okay to kill. Like it's never okay to take a life. I don't care what your religion says, and that goes for all of them too. I mean, you might be thinking the 72 virgins things. No, like the Crusades were done in quote unquote God's name, so that was not cool at all. Like mortal sins, and I know like not cool. That's way downplaying it, but you gotta kind of have to because that was back then, and we know a lot more now. So we do need to be a little easier on our past selves. Not a lot, like especially when you know. Well, okay, let's actually dissect that a little bit. So a lot of the current socioeconomic or social, I just like saying socioeconomic, but and I took a lot of economics classes too. So I mean, let's throw that in there too. I did a lot of school before I finally graduated. I could have probably had like 2 or 3 degrees if I actually, well, no, because I say that, but they were all like freshman, sophomore level classes. So they're like, we had to take electives. So you already had to take a few very random classes or seemingly random classes when really it's all good stuff. And that's why I also wanted to do a bunch of teaching stuff, not to take away from higher education by any means. Like I still suggest in many of my videos that if you can get a college degree, go for it. Like that is the ultimate thing, but not everybody can. So this is for those that can't, and for also those that maybe you did only study this, this, and this, but you're interested in hearing, what A-Rye is talking about, this, and this. Like anthropology. All right, let's talk about that real quick. I was in India, right? And they talk about, so basically cross-dressers and transvestites and transsexuals, like, or whatever you want to call them now, like transgender. There you go. Sorry. And I'm trying to be polite because I do respect that. Like that's, your body, your choice. You can do what you want. Like I'm totally like that freedom, like that libertarian, even though I'm not. I feel like that's what my libertarian buddies would say. But anyways, no. This was just something I learned in anthropology was that hedras are these are males that would dress up or either cross dress, and then I want to say they followed along every bit as much as current transgender trends, or not trends. Sorry, it's not a trend. It's a current transgender I want to say science or anyways, where it's at right now, where the technology is. There you go. We could just leave it at that because whether you agree with it or not, we can all agree that tech is getting better and processes are getting better. So, I mean, it's only a matter of time before all of that is, and then how silly are you going to look? Like anyone, sorry, anyone who's getting angry about it now, it's like, yeah, you might want to rethink that, like because it's just going to change, and then I don't know. And it does nobody any good. That's what I should point out. Is like when you start arguing and fighting about like problems like this, and that's why it's so important that I focus so much time on this. I mean, I do get pleasure out of trying to problem solve and trying to help others. I really do. That's philanthropy in a nutshell. And if everybody was able to do it like this, and so here's the other thing. I make these things so you can stand on my shoulders and you can continue making better things. Like that's for real. Like, sorry, we were talking about that statue on CSU's campus, and that's true. And I hope that everybody listening to these, that's why I keep talking about YouTube videos, like how you make them. My voice is like cracking. I'm getting all excited. But like, yeah, I made a lot of YouTube videos. I did a lot of streams on Twitch, not as many as the famous people, but and at some point it is a numbers game because you're constantly learning and you're constantly receiving feedback from, I don't know, people all around the world and not just strangers, mind you. Like if you do want to get into Twitch, I say go for it. It was okay. I mean, and I might do it some more too. Like it was fun sometimes, but I think it's more meant for people that have more of a lack of social connection is a good way to put it. Like, they don't have a lot of friends at the current time, or because I honestly believe that at least some point, like, and that is important. And you need to tell young people this in your life, like, because depression is real, and we're just finishing up with mental health awareness. But things are temporary. Your friends are temporary, but like sometimes they're permanent too. I mean, I still talk to maybe two friends from high school, and every now and then, like once every month or two, I will say something on a social media or like talk to someone else from back home or something. And that's considering like how close I was with a lot of these people because when you're in the city, you get a lot more people to deal with and you have a lot more people to deal with. It's a double-edged sword. Like you get more social interaction, you have to deal with more social interaction. And that's also why like people that are more introverted or extroverted, I honestly don't like pigeonholing people into one or the other because I feel like we're all kind of introverted and extroverted. It just depends on what's going on. Some of us are just better at handling social situations than others. And that's another thing about drinking too, is like, and from personal experience, like drinking always helped me to like get over social situations. But then you get the bad with the good too, right? Like you have a drink for courage and what traditionally people used to do. And people used to smoke in college classes. Like I said that on the last one, I believe, but yeah. I mean, I grew up learning about the water cycle in my dad's college classes down there at UCCS. Again, college doesn't matter, like as long as you're trying, I feel like. But anyways, to some people it matters. And that's the other thing, like I've never liked sports for that reason too. It's just like I just don't get it. Like you get all excited, then you get all angry, and it's like you don't understand or you don't have enough control over your own emotions and your own imagination, I guess it is. Because another thing is like generally people that read more as a kid or spend more time using their imaginations. Wow, that's kind of profound. Like, in a nutshell, nerds versus jocks. Like, and even that's not true. It wasn't true in Buena Vista. Like, we had some very nerdy jocks. Yo, but also, and I hated the idea of being a jock too. Like, just being all cocky and too confident, and like, and then that blind spot of, oh, later you'll be humbled by some like shortcoming of your own. Like, sounding biblical and prophetic there, but it's true. Like, if you act all high and mighty, and if you act all cool and like whatever, like you're gonna do something dumb, and you're gonna look even more foolish. Like, people are gonna be less likely to forgive your shortcomings because they'll be like, oh, this is the guy that thought he had it all down pat, or this is the gal that, yeah, sorry. And we need to make that distinction clear. It works for both camps, sorry, both sexes and every gender in between, because that's what I'm really meaning, is like, no matter where you're at in life, and even if you're transitioning between something, like, okay, cool, like, I'm trying to make my solution scalable to include everybody. If you're a person, like, that's all I'm concerned about. If you have a heartbeat, that's who I'm trying to protect. I don't care about any of the other stuff, and that's important because it has led to things like the Holocaust. So, and that's why I directly say stuff like this. And like, it kind of seems like, it's astounding how many people don't think in that way, but not for choice. And I say that very carefully because nobody's really like I got to choose my words carefully because I do know some prison gangs, like, they pride themselves on acting as Nazi as they can be. But even knowing people that have been in prison and people in Nazi prison gangs, like, it's yeah, I still just can't see it. Like, and once you're out of prison, sorry, one of my close friends and actually one of my professors, he taught English comm back in the day. He was a prison reintegration specialist for back home, and so, and he wouldn't tell us specific stories because you can't share names and details, but just the way that he talked to us, like the way that he taught us how to speak English, like, because we knew it from public school, but we were learning it for college. And that's what some people don't understand is like, if you don't go to college, if you don't go to some kind of higher education, you get public education and then you have the possibility of being around people that can teach you the rest of the stuff. Or with college, it is a set benchmark of like, okay, you have to learn this. We had to learn how to write essays because all of the essays that we wrote for 12 years of our grade school lives, trash. Not really. I'm just kidding. Don't ever don't ever think that. But like, that's what it kind of seems like, is like, okay, they're good for now, but now you're older, now you got to keep going. And that's why I really believe that college education should be standardized, but made free and also made patient. And that's why, like, because we have these barriers to education, not just in financing, but the people that drop out, like the tons of kids that drop out of college, they do so because many reasons. And we need to consider this. And then they're in harsh debt because they have to pay for something that they didn't even benefit from. They're not going to be able to get a job and say like, oh, I almost made a degree. Like, no, that's not how it works. At that point, you're just better off saying, well, actually, I don't know, because I believe you shouldn't lie in your job interviews because, again, solving problems down the road, I'm not about to try to explain future me, or no, sorry, future me is not about to explain past, or well, technically current me, and what I was thinking when I told you that lie in that interview. I don't have the bandwidth to do that. I can keep lies going for a long time. We all can. It's all in practice, but like, it's just too taxing and too stressful, and that's why, and it's childish too. And it's also, sorry, let's remember you're about mid to late 20s is when your frontal cortex is fully developed. That's your decision maker, and that might not be the name of it. It doesn't matter. I have learned that from a rehabilitation specialist that studies the brain and drug addiction and rehab and all that. Like, so I know for a fact that there is a lot of scientific study about why we make the decisions we do at certain periods of our lives. And that is becoming common knowledge. I mean, that's like, you're watching this and now you know. And if you want to fact check me, please do, and you'll learn even more. You might even correct some of it for me, or all of it. I don't know. No, you won't correct all of it because I know that a decision maker, whatever it's called, because I do butcher that, like names and places, like, that's why I was never a good fan. Like, I couldn't remember people's names because I just didn't care. Like, sorry. It wasn't as impressive to me because I was off, like, reading, big old storybooks about, like, the Elfstones of Shannara. That was, like, my first one. My first major book that I read. And that, it has a lasting effect on me. I can't tell you the names of the characters in that, but I can tell you almost exactly what happens in it. And it's been, I think I read it a few times too. So, anyways, what I'm saying is for the people that take to reading and are comfortable with it, they have this window into this fantasy world that we now have with technology. Okay, yeah, let's talk about that because that was another one of the keynotes I wanted to hit on this. Is future generations already have that window into fantasy. They don't need to have the patience to reading. Not saying they don't need it, and that's why we need to address parenting. Like, and we are too. That's the other thing. I do know quite a few parents, and it's not a shock. It's not uncommon to hear that they're also teaching their kids in these ways, or like doing these things to be better parents. It's just treating your kids with respect and understanding that they know way more than you know, and it's gonna just be awkward. And I remember myself, like, anyways, let's. Sorry. But why we try to say little ears and little eyes, like there's no such thing anymore. And we need to be careful of what they do see and hear. But it's no longer like, oh, if you take them to the county fair, they'll probably hear, old so and so, it used to be old Bubba and stuff, which is funny because that should be offensive to me. But like, I just find it hilarious. But anyways, that whole you might be a redneck, and then sometimes it is painfully close, and you're like, ugh. Similar to Dave Chappelle. Let's talk about that. Jeff Foxworthy is super embarrassing, but I love watching him. But I hate watching him because that gets me so embarrassed of what I used to be and what I could be. And that's the thing, is like these stereotypes and these pigeonholes that we place each other in, they are only temporary, and they can be. So you can joke about it and then know that, well, that's not who they really are. Okay, that Joanne Fabrics. And that one was a pretty popular short that I made. I talked about this lady. It was this meme, and this lady was in Joanne Fabrics. Or no, it was just she was tweeting, I think. And she said, the lady I was at Joanne Fabrics is not who I am. Or that's not who I am as a person. And I felt that. Because that is true. We all have our moments. We all have our meltdowns. Sometimes we're better at handling it than others, and we need to be graceful about how we approach other people. And we need to pretend that they can hear and see everything. And so that's the other biggest thing. And that's probably been, all right, so I started making these, let's back up a little bit. I started making these cringe chronicles. They're scratch programs, and I'm going to start making shorts of that because it's basically going to be highlighting the embarrassing things I've done as a person for science. And not just for science, because some people get turned off by hearing science. They're like, or they get angry, sorry, not turned off, triggered, whatever you want to call it. They dislike science because it was hard for them or it was difficult. And then instead of helping them, we just kept kicking them while they're down, and then we make them hate it even more. And then it's like, oh. And sorry, without naming names, like, and I got to be careful about saying this too, because these are my friends, and like, I don't want them to be embarrassed. At the same time, I'm not famous, and that you'll probably never know who they are. So I feel a little bit more comfortable about doing that. But I had friends growing up that like we did some study group stuff, and like we learned, and I felt so weird, like, because at one point, I don't know how much I was wanting to share. This is some personal stuff, but same reason I tutored in college. Like, yeah, part of it was the money, but at the same time, part of it was like, hey, if I can explain this and if I can make this easier for you and like, unleash or like take off some of that burden, reduce the friction. There you go. That's from Allie K. Miller. She's great influencer on LinkedIn. Love her stuff. Artificial intelligence. You should check her out. In a nutshell, sorry, without giving enough time and proper context. But anyways, she said in a post, reduce friction. If you're trying to ask something of someone, try to reduce the friction. Like, and I don't even remember the examples offhand, but try to speak less and say more. Keep it short, or keep it simple, stupid, like the whole kiss thing, which is like, really should say keep it simple, silly, or something. You should fuddy-duddy things, and that's not just a parenting thing, because that is something you have to do when you're a parent. You got to make it fuddy-duddy. So if you said it in front of kids, then you're covered, you're safe. I like to say everything like that because there's probably a chance a kid will be, oh, let's talk about that. My kids dropped the F-bomb in preschool. Not even preschool, they were in daycare. They dropped the F-bomb because they heard both of their parents accidentally say it just one time. That's all it takes. I know when mine was because I was driving with, like, I talked about it with my co-parent, and she definitely agreed. She was like, yeah, like, I think it was us. But like, anyways, yeah, it was just funny and it could have been us. It could have been our parents. Like, I know my mom cusses like a sailor sometimes, but like, sorry, the point of that is it doesn't matter. Kids can hear, kids can see, they're not dumb. In fact, quite the opposite. We are trying to train them to be like super soldiers. Not just kidding, like those universal soldiers in that movie back in the day. No, no, we're trying to train them to be the best people that they can be. And it seems kind of sick and twisted because you think about it in a capitalistic way. It's like, oh, we're just training future workers, future batteries like the Matrix and all that. But no, what we're doing is we're trying to reduce the friction of our kids so that they have better lives with less resources. So already right there, and I kind of talked about wealth and like wealth inequality, whether it's real or perceived the other day. And that's true because I grew up poor. I say that, but I didn't grow up as poor as other people. And I grew up in America poor, not in like XYZ poor. Because it honestly doesn't matter. Like it's bad everywhere. But it's especially bad other places because you don't have the same resources. And those are getting better all the time. Like it's like we take away all the friction and the hardship for the people that are we finally learned that we need to like oh stop punishing these people for maybe not succeeding at that point in time. See, remember, it's all situational, it's all temporary. And the average person, I forget, I read these statistics somewhere, but like, and look them up, like, fact check this stuff, but the average homeless person is only homeless for a few years tops. Like I saw a graph and it was like the actual people that are lifelong derelict, lifelong without an address, without and someone even got mad at me for saying something like that. Like, do you think they really want to be identified for what they don't have? And I'm like, well, no, they don't want you to focus on that. But if they relate and if the shoe fits, then they might listen. Like, not in a mean way, but it's like, if this is meant to be for your benefit, then you should probably key in. And sorry, and I even do that. Like I'm trying to, okay, I've made one GED video and I've been really meaning to go fix that. But that means streaming. And that's part of why I've been dragging my feet about it is because I got to, set up the stream. I got to make sure that my mic's on. I got to make sure my face is there. And then I got to make sure that like you can hear me and see me and all this. And I do that because some people do learn better when there's someone there talking to them. And that's fine. But it is awkward having your face on a screen where everybody can judge you, and that's fine. So the happy medium is it's taken me over a year to make the science video, basically. But yeah, that's why I did the GED video. That's why I want to do, although I think I don't have to. Actually, now that I keep seeing more stuff, there's already a lot of people out there reading books. I just happen to like it because I get kind of silly with it. I have fun with it. I always had fun reading. I used to read the announcements too, and not because of fame or anything. Like I liked it because of the fame at first, but I was quick to discover that 15 minutes of fame and how awkward that is too. Like, cause I was or like radio personalities or anyone famous, like literally put any name there. And that's why they get so messed up and like, well, and also because they have the access to like drugs and money and all that. And it's just human nature to be like, oh, well, I want to experience this, or I want to see what this is. Or, I mean, obviously it was that bad. Like, nobody would be doing it. Like that meme where caveman finds a mushroom and he eats it, dies. Noted. And then, like, or there's other memes out there like, how weird is it that cave people or cavemen, yeah, see, cave people, like the early cave people, we should be saying that because it's such a cop out. Cavemen is not the same. It'd be like cave women, because you can even make that distinction. Sorry, that's my soapbox there. It's like just even simple linguistics in the English language is just getting so twisted and like it's so easy to just discern. Like all we had to do is just say cave people. And then you try to tell somebody that's not ready to change how they talk. Oh, they get so mad. That's racism in a nutshell. It's not because they really hate people like that. Well, sometimes they might, but like anymore, like there's been enough exposure that actually I say that, but look at some of the states in America. We still have some pretty, and even I say that, but even people of diverse backgrounds that would bring an element of exposure to somebody, they might act just as whitewashed as the other person. I say that as like, because I had a friend, he was of African heritage. He was the whitest dude I knew. Like he was so, sorry, I said obviously not, and obviously that's disrespectful with that, but like he said some pretty messed up things, and it was just like, he was one of us. We all said some messed up things. Sorry, and also not to target him. I'm just saying like it was situational and the environment. Like we were up in a small mountain town and we were our school mascot was the demons. Yeah, there's some open source intelligence. Anybody could have figured this out by now anyways. But anyways, yeah, we had a devil on our wall. Like, and so you want to talk religion and but we loved it, like we got behind it. We were the demons. It was a fierce mascot that did really well for our very well-performing athletics because we didn't have anything but sports up there, sports and partying. But we didn't have a mall. We didn't have a movie theater. You had to drive the next town over to go to a movie theater. Oh, and if you drink and drive, good luck. There's like 20 cops between here and there. So it's not going to happen. Or if it does, there you go. You got in trouble, or you got talked to, and then you got the fear put in you. Because it wasn't like the city. Like if you got pulled over up there, there was a good chance that, they wouldn't actually take you to jail. They wouldn't actually do anything to you, but you would never do it again because what they did was worse. It was accountability. It was shared accountability. The entire town knew what you did. Oh, and actually sometimes they did do that. Sorry, I do take that back. They would still like ticket you and like make it a public thing. Because then you'd be in the Chaffey County Times. You'd be in the newspaper. And honestly, that was one of my favorite things is I would look through the police section and be like, oh, who got in trouble? And see if I knew anybody. And then I would give them a hard time. And it's like, we need more of that. But we don't need it to where it's like slanderous and it could cost you your entire livelihood. Like, see, that's where and I don't know from experience because I've never had millions of dollars, but I do know that just on that information and how hard it is to acquire that much wealth, even if you just inherited all that time, like that's a lot for, well, it's just a lot. And then also, that also implicates a lot of other things too. And that is kind of like the unpopular opinion of like why legal action, well, okay, so it's popular depending on who you are, but really all legal operations, I feel like, need to have an overhaul audit. Like everything should be. We talk about nonprofit for educational institutions. Let's talk about nonprofit for legal institutions. Like it is so expensive for lawyers, like they say the average DUI is like 10 to 15,000, or there's a billboard, here in northern Colorado that's like, think about it. This drive cost you, and then it has the actual dollar amount. And it's like, yeah, so that puts some actual accountability in your wallet. Like, I'm not going to make, or I'm less likely, sorry, because you still might, but I'm less likely to drive while drinking if I know that it's going to cost me. And then I might even be skeptical. But there was a reason that they bragged about Fort Collins being the #1 DUI in the country, because they knew it would deter. So, and this is kind of funny. So, yeah, people are still going to drink and drive, but the level of drinking and driving, like, and just knowing that there are police everywhere and that there are police that have their lights off, but they'll still like creep up on you or, which is illegal. And I heard a story, and I don't know if it's true, but of someone who actually got a case thrown out because the cop was following her when she was clearly driving drunk. And she copped to it right away. She was just like, "Oh yeah, I was so wasted." Like, and it's like, "Oh, you just bragging about driving to a point where you could crash and kill people. Like, that's not something to be proud of." So, anyways, like, sorry, that's my little like soapbox for that. Is nobody should be drinking and driving. Nobody should be smoking and driving. But then let's also be real. Like, the legal limit for alcohol is like a beer or two. I mean, and any more of that, you can kind of tell. You're like, maybe. And then like, and some people that drink regularly, they'll even carry a breathalyzer with them just to be like, okay, am I good to drive? Like, because it's a $10,000 to $15,000 mistake if you have one single beer more than you should have. And actually, I do have a story. Let's talk about that real quick. My buddy got a DUI around the corner from his house. I mean, and granted, yeah, like, well, he could have just walked. Well, okay, yeah, it's a lot easier said than done. Maybe he was at somewhere else, and maybe he was someone's ride, and maybe he did decide to have a beer. Okay, then maybe he had two. And he's like, okay, well, I'm just driving home. Like, the chances of me, he probably still felt perfectly capable of driving. That's the problem, is because the legal limit now really is like 3 beers, I want to say. I mean, I did tips training for one of my jobs, and that's where you study, or well, you're trained, you're taught how to deal with people that have been consuming alcohol at an event or a party, or well, no, it's like an event, like your company's event. And like all bartenders have to do it, all bouncers, I feel like, or it's becoming a requirement, these types of classes and training for anyone who works in an industry that deals with alcohol. Same with the marijuana industry. You have to have a lot of extra training to work in that industry because there's a lot of extra things that you need to take into consideration when even just dealing with that. I mean, the federally illegal part of it, yeah, but also like, now you're possibly introducing a lot of drug dealers. So you gotta, they can't buy more than an ounce a day. I mean, like, what else is there? If they're physically intoxicated, you gotta report them for that or something. Like, sorry, I don't know. I've never done these classes or trainings, but like, I've had friends tell me about it. It's like, so yeah. Anyways, I digress. The tips training was if they're too tipsy and you're supposed to offer them water or some food and see that can even backfire because in a capitalistic society you try to offer someone food at a bar, you're just trying to get some money. That's what people think. Right away, people will get defensive because chances are they are. They're supposed to upsell you, but then when they notice that you've had too much to drink, they're supposed to also try to get you to eat some food so you don't crash and kill somebody. Like there is accountability. Oh, look, there we go. There's our 55-minute mark. Anyways, yeah, because without that, these things would probably be like 2-3 hours long. I digress. So the importance of that is well, we had a lot of key points. I say a lot of things. Don't take everything I say for rote word law. I explore a lot of ideas and concepts, so please don't report my videos. If you disagree with something, you should comment. And if you dislike something, you dislike something. That's fine. That's just how it is. And there's probably people out there that are trolls, or I don't know, maybe there's some people that hate the demons, but whatever it is, it happens. So that's the other thing I'm doing this for is like, so I can teach other people, but more specifically, so I can teach my kids. And I'm like finding out all of the corner cases and blind spots, all of the places that would make me upset or that would, like affect me mentally and all that. Mental Awareness Month. Yeah. Again, that was probably the most important thing about this in any video is if you're talking with a young person, kid, or even just a friend, or actually anybody, maybe let them know everything is temporary, except for death. Death is the only permanent. Everything else, it can and will get better. I mean, oh, actually, that's just a fact. And it's not being, you got to be careful because people might see that as snake oil salesman tactics of just being overly optimistic, but it's true. Like, if you work hard, you can do anything you want. And that sounds like a cheesy saying, but that is true too. It just might take time and you might stumble along the way. That's the part that a lot of people don't have a chance to include. And now we do because now I can actually just take this minute, make a short of it, and make that into a thing. So again, when you're talking with people, especially young people though, because they got hormones going on, and that greatly affects their thinking. That's why you see so many like teen suicides. Also with the soldier suicides, and we'll get to that too. Like that's another reason that all of this is important, is because it is deadly to people if you can't communicate properly and if you misinterpret things. And heart attacks too. Let's talk about that. The number one killer in America, heart disease. I don't know if it still is, but a quick Google search, yeah, probably is. That is deeply embedded into emotions, your day-to-day interactions, and it adds up too. Like the more negativity you give out, and then see, there you go. Then people might roll their eyes and be like, "Oh, he's just doing some hippy dippy stuff, like peace, love, and nonsense." Well, no, it's because people are jaded to it because everybody says it. And same thing, every religion says it, every politician says it, like, oh, I have the way to make this happen, or like let's fix it, let's drain the swamp, let's do this, or let's actually work for the working family, or you'll live the best life in heaven, or 72 virgins, or whatever. And honestly, I don't even know what it is. Yeah, I think it's heaven and hell with Judean is anyways, sorry. The point is it doesn't matter. Everybody's trying to say the same thing. They don't wish you harm just outright. It's all a direct or indirect result of something else, some negativity. Because nowadays you're not going to most likely you're not going to starve. There is still a chance. We do have some places that are in war-torn areas. I looked that up once, and it's not for lack of technology or for lack of effort. It's just because of their resources keep getting blown up from war or stolen or destroyed or whatever, sabotaged. But anyways, we have the technology to basically eradicate hunger, and we're getting closer. Sorry, I just got way onto the soapbox. But in this day and age, if something's evil, then it's probably a misunderstanding. And I guess that's the important thing to realize is nobody's just out there just evil to be evil. something happened. They were raised wrong, whatever. Like that's a lazy way to say it, but maybe they worked really hard at a job and never saw forward advancement, or maybe they worked, like the whole Fight Club premise. There's like a whole, okay, now we're down to the last minute, but anyways, that's something to think about is like people can be pushed to do ridiculous things, and a lot of it is because of poor communication or just misinterpretation of facts of what people say or of what people even think. So just keep that in mind. Be kind to each other. Take it easy on it, and take a step back and really think it through. All right, that's my time. I will see you later. Have a good one.